opportunities.
It's a great morning. Thank you so much for linking with us, starting your day with us on Morning Spring on Western Spring Television, where we say it as it is. Femi Olanipeku is my name. Thank you so much for waking up with us this morning. We do pray that the springs for you to succeed in your endeavors today, that God gives it to you, that your feet really have those springs. It's a full house today, you know, and well balanced in terms of gender. I'm sure Emmanuel will agree with me. 2 guys, 2 ladies, you know. So, Emmanuel.
Well, it's 2 days to the end of
and I trust you to do the countdown. You
2 days to the end of the Castro policy deadline, in about 6 days to the Valentine's Day celebration, where you get to share a lot of things with your loved ones. And of course, it should be about 19, 16, I can't remember now, 17 days there about.
It should be 17 days and some hours, if I'm not mistaken.
17 days.
Yeah. To the election, you meant to say?
Yes, to the election, yes. I'm beginning to lose track. But then, welcome to the show this morning. Morning Spring is what you're onto. We bring it to you as it is, from where it drops, and when it drops, we try to help you make sense of all the things happening around you and put them in perfect and proper perspective. You know, we have for you the newspaper analysis segment, of course, the interview segment, and we'll bring you who is trending, what is trending, and why they're trending, and what people are saying about those 3 things, the who, the what, and the why on Spring Trends. My name is Emmanuel Ujadigili. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for joining us this morning on Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. I am Temitope Ajijalaolola. Good morning.
And thanks for joining us this morning. My name is Deborah Ayosholadure.
Okay, well, so that's the debutant, really. And so let's see our debut today. And it promises to be a swell time, really, taking you through the papers and helping you to have a better sense of what issue is happening, especially in our locality. There was some set of workers that were recruited sometimes by the last administration, where you know that the governor came into office and then issued a raft of executive orders. One of such orders affected some of those recruited afterwards. So we'll be getting to hear from some of them who appear to be in a limbo, and so they don't know what their status is. Are they employed or are they sacked? But they've not been paid their salary, so maybe that's a hint as to what their status really and fate is. Well,
we hope to bring them on. We had the teachers on some weeks ago to come speak their own minds, and we're also hoping that the committee saddled with that responsibility will make its report public very soon, so that these people can know their fate and begin to seek alternative jobs if they won't be retrenched, or begin to, you know, show up their hopes if they will be retained by the government of the day.
I love the word shoring up hopes, you know. You show up hopes, you know. So there's a difference between a half cup, you know, a cup that is half empty or half full. As a positive.
Well, that's just semantics, you know.
I trust you.
We'll get back to that.
Well, let's go on a break now. Let's take the papers. That'll be after this break.
Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was an anti-apartheid activist who gave his all for the elimination of what has been described as the world most vicious rule of the unjust and man's inhumanity against man. He was born July 18, 1918 in Mvezo, South Africa. Educated and trained as a successful legal practitioner, he took up the gauntlet of a human activist against segregation by the minority white supremacist in South Africa. At the climax of his trial for treason, orchestrated by the minority South African government, the great crusader for democratic equality was prepared to pay the supreme sacrifice to establish majority rule in his native land. He told white jurists that if achieving freedom for his people was worth his life, he was prepared to die. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in Robben Island, described as the most notorious prison in the world. It was from this same prison that he came out as a free man to assume office as South Africa's first black president in 1994. Western Spring Television identifies Nelson Mandela as a watershed character in history.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Let's begin with the paper review now, and we'll start with the Punch newspaper. Still about the Naira crisis. Naira crisis will disrupt polls. INEC wants a Emefiele, NSA. With the riders, some of our service providers have no bank accounts. Commission laments. Buhari governors meeting shoved. Minister says president's hands tied. Banks shut branches over customers' attacks. CBN calls for calm. Interesting times, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting times. I did see some of the videos yesterday. We'll be using them on the trends later today. But very disturbing videos. You know, saw a video of a young man who was shot apparently by security forces while trying to quell the protest. I saw videos of people forcefully making their ways into bank buildings, and as a result of that, banks having to close down. There were also videos of bank officials trying to escape through, the fences. But it is still appalling and alarming that the government failed to heed all the concerns that were raised, especially by financial experts. These warnings were there. Governors were saying it. Our people don't have banks. Even Nasser El-Rufai had to say Kaduna is very big. It's a local government that has just one bank. Even here in Osun, without going far, people spend as much as 700-800 naira from Iragbiji, to get money here, and they still don't have the money. They still can't find it. So definitely they will be frustrated. But the warning INEC is issuing is a dire one. INEC that has always said that it will go through with its election, to now issue a warning and say that, look, there's a possibility. And of course, it's just 17 days to the election. I don't see the cash crunch being resolved easily before then. And it remains to be seen the implications of that on the elections.
So it's evident that this was not a well thought out process.
It wasn't.
There are evidently gaps here because INEC now saying some of our service providers, perhaps some of those transporters do not use bank accounts. Those who are responsible for logistics.
Yes.
There are others who also
of the sensitive materials.
Yes, a number of gaps here. So the commission is raising an alarm, like you said. So it remains to be seen now if the CBN will be able to fix this particular crisis between now and 17 or 16 days time.
We don't even have 17 or 16 days.
Oh, sure.
It has to be fixed like a week before the election.
And I don't see that anytime soon. It doesn't look like we'll be able to sort the issue out anytime soon.
I mean, because the longer it gets, like you rightly noted now, the more problems it creates for INEC. So it's better it's resolved earlier so that whoever is getting what gets it ahead of time instead of just some few days. And I don't know, the president was supposed to meet with governors, maybe the larger house, but eventually he had only a private meeting with Tambuwal, the chairman of the Governors Forum, and I think the chairman of the Progressives Governors Forum, maybe just two persons there. And it's getting worse in that banks are getting shut. One of the second generation banks yesterday had all of their branches shut down all over Lagos Island. And you've also seen pictures of bank workers scaling fences trying to escape through some other routes. It speaks to the kind of threat now the lives of some of these bankers.
And even several banks that were in operation had to quickly shut down operation yesterday because of the protests.
Yes.
And schools as well. So there are many institutions now that are under a lot of threat, or due to the protests,
Well, again, it speaks to the president's nonchalant attitude towards this issue.
Is it nonchalant?
Yes, very nonchalant. His decision to focus on leaving office is what has led us to this place. A president who is up and doing, who is sensitive, would have sought advice. I mean, just yesterday or 2 days ago, some persons came out to say the president was fed false information.
Yeah.
A jury, the SSA to the government, to the
No, I mean,
president.
so not only a jury, I think some other senior officials of the government have said that's even embarrassing in a way.
And that was what I was trying to say, that how does a president who has at his disposal intelligence of an entire nation get fed false? That means he's not in touch with the realities. He doesn't know what is happening.
And it also suggests that he's manipulable. I mean, so you can easily manipulate the president.
Just tell him something and then he does it.
Yeah,
Just because he feels.
It's not good in terms of the optic, because other than the president and his CBN chief, every other person in the cabinet that have spoken on this matter have spoken against it,
Including the vice president.
Fashola, the minister of finance, the minister of works. I mean, that's Fashola now, and many others have spoken, whether in private or in public. They were spoken against it. So, at what point was this matter? Was it debated at the FEC?
So it means they were not even aware. Remember what Zainab Ahmed said, Minister of Finance, that they read it on the papers like every other person.
Every other person.
So the president is just
every
on
other
his
person
own.
seems to be working or doing something or saying something. But here, the second rider says that the president's hands are tied. How is the president's hand tied?
Man.
Yes.
I have quite some things to say, but I would so you don't have to trend hashtags for me. So I just
Free Emmanuel or free Jadi. I'm also wondering how or what tied the president's hands.
Yes.
And it's reminiscent of some of the things that have happened in this country in the past. God forbid we go through that again. The June 12, 1993 crisis. The president said, this is not my decision alone, and it's similar to saying my hands are tied. Tied by who?
Tied by Murphy baby. I'm very sure it's Murphy baby, because it's just the two of them running the show.
Just the two of them.
Okay, well, the other headline, and of course you can see the picture of the disturbance, civil disturbance, riots in some parts of the country. A picture of a vandalized bank, riots on the street. So down below that picture, Ogun, Ondo, Edo, protesters storm banks, demand cash. And that was a picture or the video of a young child that was shot in Ogun State, and I went there yesterday. And I mean, it's troubling. And for each day, this issue gets delayed in terms of resolution, you're likely going to lose another person.
Yes, get worse.
Properties.
Guess what?
Yes.
Guess what? Because the frustration now is, how do I work for my money for a month, 2 months, and I keep my money in a bank? And I go to the bank, the cashier tells me I can't give you more than 2,000. I go to the POS says you can't withdraw more than 2,000 at 200 naira charge.
It's more than a tithe. It's more than 10%.
So yes, that's 100%. So how under 100% increase from the previous charge? So how do I go about? I saw some of our guys at the office here. It was like an exodus. Leaving the office at night, they were all trekking. These are people's fathers and husbands.
Yeah.
The man who was shot yesterday is probably a breadwinner. He didn't even know he was shot. He was running until he had to stagger into a gutter. And this is reminiscent of the NSAS. This was how it started. It was just pockets of protest. Before you know it took on a national coloration. And the government really should be careful.
Well, I do hope that government takes heed. I'm sure that there will be several intelligence reports from the domestic and other intelligence services. It's like sitting on a keg of gunpowder. These can really blow in our faces, and because of you just made reference to NSAS. This was all how it started. People's patience are wearing thin. People are getting fed up. The frustration is eating the roof. How do you have money, for God's sake, and you
don't
can't
even
spend
have,
it?
let's
And
say
then-
you don't have access to cash. You don't have access to, other terminals as well.
Yes.
Other means.
Banks are closing.
USSDs are not working.
not-
I mean,
You
so some
make
of the bank, yeah.
transactions
Network
and it
issue.
takes 3 days to get to the recipient.
I mean,
Really frustrating.
I was looking
Really.
for an apron 2 days ago. I ordered food online and my bank app didn't open. An apron. Let me just go wash if I.
And I think you also had one of your, failed transactions reversed yesterday
Yes, I
after
did.
several days or
days.
even a week. So it's really, really frustrating.
Well, so I mean, let's move on. Down the paper, Ekiti owes pensioners 40 billion naira gratuities. That's according to the governor, Yebanji. I dread to hear such stories. So, all of us will grow old, get old, and also want to earn our pensions and gratuities. It beats me all of the time how our leaders are able to sleep, that people who have toiled and slaved for the country, who should sit back and enjoy the fruit of their labor, as they say, are owed gratuities and pensions. And this is not peculiar to Ekiti alone. So this is 40 billion naira in gratuities. Their lives will be on hold. Some perhaps, not even perhaps, they have children in school. Sometimes some of them have ailments that they manage because of old age, but they are not paid. How do we prioritize the interest of pensioners, of senior citizens who serve the nation, instead of politicians collecting severance pay? We seem to prioritize those who should serve us. Is that not what it is?
That's what it is. And what really worries me when it comes to issues of pensions is seeing people, octogenarians, septuagenarians, on the street with placards. Some of them, like you said, Femi, managing different ailments, but still coming out to protest and demand. They shouldn't be in that position. But when you look at the pension package for members of houses of assembly, look at pensions packages for executive
governors, those who have turned themselves to live, governor who do.
It's worrisome that the people who actually do this service, who actually
ones being denied.
The funny one and utterly sad part of it is when, I don't know if they still do it, but there was a time that they say, you come and show that you're alive. I'm alive.
Yes, I'm
proof
alive.
Proof of life.
Proof of life.
So it's I'm alive. So some of them are dragged. Some of them are brought in their beds, bedridden, sick people in their old age, brought to the venue of those centers. I remember it held several years back. They say I'm alive. It's I feel like weeping. And we've seen other people who served in other countries, perhaps Nigerians who lived abroad, who worked abroad, who returned home, who still collect their pension.
Yes.
The government of those countries send their pension to them regularly back in
Yes,
Nigeria.
I mean, one of such prominent cases is John Fashanu, the ex-England international. I mean, he made just one appearance or two for England. And there was a time he was asked why he chose to play for England over Nigeria, and he said, "Look at me right now. I don't have it. I'm out of a job, but I get my pension, and monthly, I think." And
Because
that's
he
what
played for the Three Lions,
just once or twice. And he gets that, and it speaks to what you're saying. People come back from diaspora and they get their gratuities right here in the country. But people who work here don't even get anything. They are owed Ekiti to the tune of 40 billion. And this man was in the news recently telling the people of the state that they owe themselves to someone that they are supposed to vote for. I mean, the priorities are wrong, very, very wrong.
Okay, so moving on. The U.S. indicts Nigerian of stealing Varsity's $1.4 million. Okay, and FG plans new policy to track public spending. That'll be a good one. Just above the nameplate, fuel price to skyrocket as marketers threaten shut down. There's confusion about that. Ipman came out to debunk one. That was actually a statement issued by the Ipman chairman in Borno State, but there seems to be an intervention. But it was misconstrued to be a national directive. Thing. So I don't know if there's a separate one here, but if those marketers shut down eventually, we are in for a problem. I'm ashamed to tell you, Emmanuel, that that's all of my braggings. I queued for fuel yesterday. I spent 3 hours on the queue.
Miracle, no the tire God. There is absolutely nothing my God cannot do. Welcome to the club.
Are you praying for me to?
No, I just wanted you to have a taste.
Emmanuel, in the sweltering heat, I was sweating like a Christmas goat.
Wow.
In February, a few days to Valentine, and it was one of the most depressing time for me. But that was because I had to queue, because in the past 2 weeks I'd racked up on my fuel bill. I spent almost 20,000 naira in fuel, so I had to reunion, as we say in Yoruba land, call a meeting of all of my organs to look for an alternative. I had to spend, so I had to queue, and I saw several other men and women who should be in their offices, in their business places.
So we have on the show this morning a victim of the petrol scarcity.
I am a victim.
Tell us, how was your experience?
It was terrible.
What are your recommendations?
It was terrible. The recommendation is government should fix this like yesterday. So I mean, there was queue in almost every part of the country. I mean, of the town. There were fights also. There are people who bashed their cars.
Even till this morning, why coming just a few minutes ago, I saw a lot of cars parked just at the petroleum station just over there. And it's not funny.
The fights are the ones
the
that
queue
funny.
is endless. Now, I'm talking about the banking sector also. It's disheartening to say that you have to queue for your own cash, despite working for that. I woke up 4 o'clock to get to the bank 5:50. And I got number 157. Do you know what that means?
Some people stayed overnight.
People stayed over.
I'm actually making plans to do that. I will communicate my plans to the appropriate authorities.
But really, it's disturbing as well that the NNPC is saying that by next week, the crisis will ease. But then
I don't believe
the marketers are saying
because I have issues. 34 days. I'm suffering from PTSD.
Okay, quickly now.
With what is happening right now.
Yes. All right. Banks ordered to freeze Pakistani terror financiers' accounts, and how powerful forces try to stop Tinubu candidacy. APC vice chair. So I don't like talking in parables. I don't like, can these guys come out to the open and tell us who is behind what?
That's why Najatu Mohammed is my person of the
year.
No, person of the month. Murphy Baby is my person of the year. Perpetually, it lives off his.
All right.
Name names.
Name names. Let's know who.
At least now we know that Aisha Buhari is one of them.
No, that's according. I mean, so you can't take
according to Najatu.
So you may not be able to take that to the bank,
Yes. But she hasn't come out to dispute it.
Okay. So Turkey, Syria earthquake, death hit 7,146. That's absolutely disturbing. That's worrying.
Yeah, that's
7,000, and it keeps rising.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, all of our Nigerian players, in Turkey, there are a lot of Nigerian players in Turkey. Are safe. Understand that the part affected by the earthquake and not, areas where Nigerians really still live. But we were lucky for Christian Atsu, the Ghanaian player, who was pulled from the rubble. But the director of football of that club has still not been found as of yesterday when I checked. Our hearts and prayers really are with the people of Syria and Turkey. Let's start with a Punch newspaper, Emmanuel.
Well, let's move on to the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian newspaper has its banner headline, Currency Swap, Buhari cancels meeting with governors as TUC issues ultimatum. And the riders there meets with Bagudu, that's Kebbi State Governor, Tambuwal, Emefiele, FCC, but Tinubu bankers call for calm. PDP, hoarding of new Naira notes causing Nigerians pains. Protest, rock, Ondo, Lagos APC suspends campaign. See the pictures there of people, that woman lying down with a key on her chest. Very disturbing and scary photos there. We also need to look at the security risk of some of these things. Someone who wakes up as early as 5 to go to an ATM machine, a woman, a man, whoever, is also susceptible to attacks by some hoodlums, or people who want to be unscrupulous. Buhari cancelling his meeting with other governors. It's telling of the fact that the man is trying to, just meander his way out of the issue. But I still feel that this whole Naira redesign thing was poorly thought out, and people who should have been consulted were not spoken to.
Well, so, I find it hard to believe that that the president cancelled. I don't know what the reason.
I think it's because of the bank injunction. You know, the governors. I think they refused to. They must have said they wouldn't be cancelling.
Yeah, they could have still led.
I think
Yes,
it's
the
because of
governors.
the law.
You know, those parties.
court's
You
law.
know, some parties wrote, you know, that later to the court.
I mean, so you don't get the point.
I think it's
Court's
because of-
injunction
meetings.
was for the cash policy.
So it's about holding
yeah.
meetings.
They could
At
have
this
met.
point,
it's
the
for the
president.
cash policy, but I think he's trying to say he doesn't want to disregard the law.
No,
because of
the
this.
injunction is not binding on him.
On him.
The meeting is to talk about what's happening. It's not for, you know, extending deadline, or they just needed to meet.
So, I mean, it's the outcome of the meeting, whatever
Yes.
it becomes. I mean,
Yes.
that could set in motion, you know,
That's,
machineries to do whatever.
Something-
But at this stage, with the level of crisis in the country, the president should be speaking to Nigerians, either directly or through their representatives. The governors should be met. They have been at the forefront of opposition, most of them, save for Dave Umahi, who came, you know, through an unpopular one yesterday. You don't know for what reason. But there is nothing stopping the president from meeting with the people, its representatives, whether the members of the National Assembly or the governors. The president ordinarily should by now be speaking to Nigerians. And so why does the president keep doing, you know, social distancing with Nigerians?
His hands are tied.
I mean, so
hands
it's
are
a height
tied.
of insensitivity.
And that's why I said it's nonchalant too. He does not see the need to. He doesn't feel that. You see, the only time I think Buhari felt threatened or felt the need to speak was when he said that he was told that youth were marching to Aso Rock to overthrow him. And that was when he felt, oh, I need to speak, I need to talk about the NSAS. I think if it doesn't affect him personally, he really doesn't care about
doesn't
the
hold it as a
fate of
priority.
Nigerians. I mean, right now, what leaders are speaking out for Turkey? I mean, as little as the Malaysian, it's not little, but as you know, the Malaysian Airlines thing, we still talked about it at the office recently. People were speaking. Earthquakes, floods, people speak up. Robberies, stabbings at banks. 2 persons were stabbed at a bank. You see the Prime Minister speaking up, you see the governor speaking, you see even the president. But here we have a major crisis.
a crisis of a national magnitude.
All around the country.
And then so the people want to meet, you know, I found it disconcerting last week that the president had the, let me be careful with my choice of words so that I don't get trending. And Emmanuel does not.
No, my Twitter is active.
Really. But I find it not too good that the president actually, when he was approached last Friday, you know, when this crisis started, that they asked, okay, give me 7 more days. I mean, you say 7 more days for Nigerians to suffer. And this has not abated in any way. This has even gotten worse. So bankers are now targets. You have bankers dressing down to office now. You know, I intend to go to the bank also today. I won't like to go like this so that I don't get caught in the web, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yes.
And so the president should be speaking to Nigerians, and then meetings like this shouldn't be cancelled. So he met privately, but I feel that there should be a national address to explain to the people what I'm doing. In other functional societies, there's a minute by minute, a day by day account of what you are doing to address a particular problem. But our leaders just take people for granted here, and nothing happens.
It's because the people themselves have willed their power to the leaders, and that's why leaders can apparently get away with a lot of things. I remember the energy crisis in the United Kingdom that forced Liz Truss to resign. Every day there was a meeting in the House. The lawmakers met every day, and she was present in the House to explain to the House what is going on. It was when she felt she couldn't take it anymore. She said, I can't deliver my mandate. She resigned. You know, but here's a president who does not even, I don't think he knows.
Okay, can we move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Yeah, let's
INEC chair meets MFLA demands concessions for election operations. There's a meeting there. You can see the picture of Deputy Governor of the CBN and the Governor Murphy and INEC chairman meeting. INEC demanding concessions for election operations I wonder what those concessions would be. If it will be that INEC will get cash directly from the CBN, or they will be allowed to use the old notes. You know, some of these things.
No, they can't use the old notes.
They can't, because it's no longer legal tender.
When?
You know,
10.
2 days.
In 2 days.
So the only option now will be to give cash directly.
There is special consideration for them to give them. So the more you think about Nigeria, you know, the more you look, the less you see her Stacey. But it's good, and I find it funny that Emefiele is smiling.
No, man. You see, it's because it's my baby. It's my guy. I like to defend him. He has to smile. The man is going through a lot.
All right.
You know. Well, let's move on from that. Oh, and let's thank God that he's not being hunted by the DSS anymore. At least that has changed.
No, he actually gave an instruction to the DSS some days back. So, you know, it became the case of the hunter becoming the hunted, or the hunter becoming the hunter now. So it was the DSS that was after Emefiele, and then Emefiele now saying, giving orders to the DSS, go and catch saboteurs. Those.
But I feel that Emefiele is still being hunted anyway, even if it's not by the DSS.
By
just
who?
needs to. I'm
just
sure.
a matter of time.
Oh, well, have you been speaking? Have you been speaking to my baby? Well, let's move on from that. NDIC adopts new reporting template to fast track MFBs, PMIs in short, claims as business page 18. Below the nameplate, Anaku youths invade Omar community, kill 8, scores missing. Emefiele can't fund activities of IPOB, says group. As on page 23, Emefiele was recently linked to some terrorism financing. Well, that case has just gone, went like that. We don't know why or where it went to. Then sports page 29, Ghanaian star rescued from rubbles after earthquake. You can see pictures of Christian Atsu. But one thing that was disturbing for me was that we have lost our sense of humanity as people. You know, a lot of bloggers chose to use this man's story to drive up traffic. You know, people posting, he's been found dead, he's been found alive, this person has said this, just to drive up traffic for their own blogs on their website, and it's really, really bad. Now on the last story on the Guardian newspaper, Wike backtracks, approves stadium for Atiku's rally.
My favorite guy.
Oh yeah, so we now have favorite guys.
So I mean, I don't know how sanity or reason prevailed at Ayatu Bakra, but you know, disapproving the use of the stadium in the first place was despotic in nature. It speaks of some tyrannical tendencies that shouldn't have been, and we've seen this again. We've seen a pattern of attacks on opposition, campaign rallies, and these intransigents as regards the issues, they have their issues, but disallowing a particular group from using it because you have issues with them. And if you check the statement that Barrister Chris Green issued, that's talking about Commissioner for Sport, I don't know if they hold water, but it's good as the reason prevailed, and that they'll be allowed to use the stadium again.
And remember, Wike is not declared, you know, his own anointed person.
He said the people of the state
they know who he's queuing behind,
and then so
maybe these are subtle hints for us to know as well.
Yeah, so talk in the street. I mean, what on the street says it's Bola Ahmed Tinubu that is supporting, and that you know, there was an allegation also from the PDP PCC in the state that he's given instructions to all of his guys all through Rivers to support, and there was also an allegation that Tony Ekol, the candidate of the APC, is supporting the PDP. You know, the Nigerian political system is such that you need to devote time to energy, you know, and professors to research into. Because as we're getting closer to the election, we've seen a lot of somersaults,
a lot of
PDP defending APC, APC defending.
I mean,
PDP.
Atiku coming out to defend Buhari was the height of it. It was just the height of it.
It can't happen anywhere. Whoever is writing the script deserves a pay rise.
Yes, a big pay rise. So that's that on the Guardian newspaper.
All right, let's not forget quickly that the Guardian has joined Emmanuel on this countdown to the elections as well.
Yes, they're welcome to the club.
All right, quickly moving on to this day, Daily Trust rather. The banner headline says Buhari convenes emergency council of state meeting Friday. that the writers come up with pragmatic solutions. Afenifere urges leaders. We need cash to conduct elections, INEC says. President meets Tambuwal Bagudu, CBN governor, others at Aso Rock. Well, I quite agree with the first writer, where the Afenifere is saying, come up with pragmatic solutions. I think they've been trying to come up with some solutions, but, you know, they've not been holding water as it is. They've not been, you know, bringing about effective change, effective, you know, change across board. And so, like,
it's interesting that Buhari would call a council of state meeting. That's unusual, very unusual.
So I mean, maybe that should temper our disaffection with the earlier story on Guardian.
Yes.
But that's going to be on Friday.
No, but the council of state meeting is not meeting with the governor. It's meeting with former presidents and leaders of the country. It's the council of state. So I said on Monday,
and I think it's advisory. I mean, the body is advisory. In nature.
Yes, and what I said on Monday was that it is time for him to seek help. He obviously has reached his capacity. Is the help. Yes, this is the help. He has reached capacity. You can't fault the man. He's old.
You know, so, I've done my best.
Well, I don't know if that's how we should look at it. Because you also look at the fact that some of these policies are what the president tried as a military man in the 80s.
And he's bringing them back.
So, I mean, redesigning, changing currency was what he did in the 80s. Closure of the borders was what he did in the 80s. Just like some of us shouted our voices hoarse that time that it was going to have a negative effect. There are those who, they're ultra-patriotic people who say that we need to produce. No country is self-sufficient in food production. You know, they say we had to shut the borders. I see what it has brought food inflation to. Yes. The average Nigerian spent over 60% of his earnings on food alone. And so these are some of the things, perhaps the president is stuck in the 80s.
Yes. And he cannot give what he doesn't have.
That Buhari does what Buhari wants to do. And then it's evidence that he has not evolved with the times. So the policies it was affecting then are still the ones he works with even now. And then, so because Buhari does what Buhari wants, it might be, you know, shutting out advice, you know, sound advice from people who really know what to work now. Exactly, because he doesn't agree with them, or because he doesn't trust them, because he has said he always puts people he trusts, you know, around him. You know, he works with people he trusts. So all of this just culminates in the fact that he needs sound advice, and maybe this Council of State meeting is going to produce that.
So let's hope.
If he thinks their advice is enough.
All right, just below that, Turkey-Syria quake death toll passes 7,200. That's massive and disheartening as well. And we still say that our hearts are with them. Gunmen kill Imam, chief's son, abduct 14 others in Kaduna. So as we're having the cash crunch crisis, we're having issues with petrol and all that. And people, you know, gunmen are still perpetrating their own evils across, you know, the state, and especially in Kaduna now, where 14 people have been abducted. And that's joining those on the Daily Trust. That's the schoolgirls. Yes.
But that's my fear also. This gunman issue. If we allow this protest, these agitations on the cash and fuel scarcity to last, it's only a matter of time before people start targeting each other. We saw what happened during the NSAS, where the ordinary people fell to those people of means had things they were holding, and people were breaking into houses, TVs, I mean, things you didn't even need. You just wanted to participate.
Like signposts.
Make a statement.
Yes, signposts.
For what reason?
For what reason? So let's just take care of on all fronts. On all fronts.
Right. BUA to dualize 132-kilometer Kano-Kongolom road with 115 billion naira. Well, even though I don't know if this is the right time to, you know, embark on capital projects like this, but this is Nigeria. All right. The bottom strip says, race to NAS, retired Air Commodore orders in hot battle to unseat Doguwa. And above and below the nameplate, above the banner headline, politicians' electorate biggest danger to 2023 polls. Jega, that's the former INEC chairman now. is saying politicians and the electorate biggest danger to 2023.
Well, I quite agree with Professor Jega. The politicians themselves are the ones who tamper with the process. You know, they are the ones who induce voters. They are the ones who have political thugs. They are the ones who make aggressive statements, who also passively encourage, you know, some unsavory acts by their supporters and the electorate too. We also have our own problems. We're yet to be able to see beyond our stomachs and our noses and to project into the future and then ask questions. You know, Femi would always say that when politicians make promises, don't just ask the what, you ask the why and the how. How do you intend to do it? How do you intend to do it? You know, but so they are the biggest thing. They're truthfully to the 2023 polls. It is the electorate who are attacking INEC offices. They are not ghosts. It is the electorate who are, you know, going about trying to sell and buy PVCs. Politicians also contributing to that. But we hope that the elections will not really snowball into crisis and that it will hold peacefully.
So Jegai speaking from the perspective of an experienced person now. All right, just beside that, fuel crisis disrupts essential services across Nigeria. School buses, ambulances and skeletal operations. Police, civil defense reduce patrols. And that's because of the fuel issue across Nigeria. The school buses are already
reducing operations, and police and civil defense reducing their patrols. So if you're being robbed at night and you call the police station, they will first ask you, you have fuel.
But when has the police had fuel? You know, when do they have fuel?
That's what I mean. I guess they had fuel
in
before,
the past,
but then maybe
they had,
but they won't even
excuses.
have anymore now. You know, and
their vehicles are always tireless. And
I guess that's not fair. Have you seen some, you know, excuse it, brand new police vehicles?
Of course, yes, I have.
So please, can you please spare a policeman? But I mean, what's troubling for me is about the ambulances. You know, also doing skeletal operations. Maybe it's not as pronounced in terms of the services here. I know in many other parts of the world, you dial the emergency code, you get a response. But here, where it's not as, you know, effective as, but even that little one that we do is now also affected by this fuel crisis. So anyone in danger, to rush someone to the hospital. And you know, we run an ambulance service here in Osun State that has been, you know, well commended and it's been actually effective. I saw some of their buses also queuing at the filling station yesterday. We queued together, but they bought before me, you know. But it speaks to the dire nature of what we have. So imagine that the places where those buses were to serve yesterday had an emergency. Who was going to go there? And these are some of the issues that leaders should look at, how policies like this, unintended consequences of policies, have an impact on the lives of ordinary folks. You know, that's what we should be looking at. But hopefully we get it sorted as soon as possible.
All right. Still in captivity are the 11 schoolgirls of FGC Benin Yari who have now spent 603 days, and a student of Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama, who has spent as well 575 days. We're still hoping that they will be reunited with their families.
Yeah, before we leave the Daily Trust, there's a picture there that is disturbing. The caption says, the inset, the small one there, says a newborn baby who was found still tied by an umbilical cord to her mother and pulled alive from the rubble of a home in northern Syria. The infant is the sole survivor of her immediate family.
Wow.
How do you explain this to the child when she grows up? God, I pray that God comforts her and
Amen.
Helps her grow.
Okay, so the next paper is the This Day newspaper, and the banner headline is also about the Naira scarcity. Buhari, Bagudu, Tambuwal, Emefiele, Bawa meet, seek solution. That's the president's meeting with the two governors, the governor of the central bank and the EFCC chairman yesterday, and a number of riders here. President cancels meeting with NGF over Supreme Court action. CBN has no plan to thwart polls with Naira shortage, says Apex Bank governor. FGA blames opposition for politicizing policy. CBN has disbursed over 1 billion naira to banks in Edo in 3 days, state government reveals. Ganduje alleges plots to disrupt democracy. TUC gives federal government 7-day ultimatum to address currency fuel shortages. Okay.
And you can see the 4 of them smiling there. Godwin Emefiele smiling alongside the president, and Kebbi State Governor Atiku Bagudu and Tambuwal smiling when they should be crying. Actually, they should be weeping for the state of the nation.
There's a saying that if 2 brothers go inside and they come out smiling, they've not told themselves the truth.
They've not told themselves the truth. Well, that seems to be the case with these 4 men holding Nigeria to ransom. No, actually 2 of them holding Nigeria to ransom.
Well,
Murphy and
Nigeria is a country of lack of consequences, of no consequence, because if you look at this particular picture alone, is enough to take you out of job.
Yes.
In some other climes, the fact that there is misery in the land, people suffering, frustration at its peak, and a picture like this came out of a meeting, and then it's all smiles on the faces of those who should address the nation. I'm not sure Liz Truss did this much before she was forced out of power in the UK. But we do hope that the meetings will yield positive results. Hopefully, that the meeting at the Council have said also that they'll be able to tell themselves some bitter truth, and maybe not necessarily smiling, because Nigerians are not smiling. And so you see every day, I understand there's going to be a protest this morning in Akure. Those say there was a protest at Ore, blocking of the Ore Benin Expressway,
which is actually the entrance into the eastern part of the country.
There's going to be protest in Akure. Police overworked to stop the protest in Osogbo on Monday. I don't know for how long will the police hierarchy and other eminent citizens be able to stop it. If this continues, then you expect to see spreading of protests and God forbid riots like we've seen in some other places. Just above that banner headline and below the nameplate, PDP APC candidate hoarding cash causing Nigerians pains. Tinubu opposition creating national siege to disrupt elections. Will the riders hold me, my family responsible if I fail to perform? Obi declares. And I will prioritize education, security. Kwankwanso reiterates commitment.
Well, I'm sad that we are politicizing this issue. I mean, despite the sharpness in contrast between the Republican and Democratic parties in the U.S., there are times they've had to vote across party lines over issues of national security, issues of economic policies. This is the time to not bring politics into politics.
I mean, that's what politicians do. They politicize matters.
What is a national siege to destroy? Again, it speaks to the Buhari syndrome. I would like to put it that way. Tinubu feels like his presidential ambition is being threatened, or is being people are making attempts to.
No, it doesn't feel it. He said it.
He said it. Yes, that they are trying to stop him from becoming president. Buhari says the only thing I'm concerned with is finishing my term and retire to my farm. I mean, these are insensitive statements.
Okay, so what evidence also as the PDP
has that the APC is holding cash? I mean, the APC candidate is not the central bank governor.
Is the APC candidate the CBN?
Does he have money minting machines in his house? So they are leaving the meat of the matter and making it into, and of course Nigerians, that's what we love to see. We love to see the drama.
At each other.
Yes, we love to see the drama. We love to see the gospels, particularly me for my trends, But then over and above that,
and the dragging onto it.
Yes,
like
over and above
my neighbor generator.
I look forward to the day they would drag, the host of Frank Talk on River FM. But we'll get back to that. Now, PDP and APC need to help us talk to their people in government to reduce the suffering of Nigerians and not make it all politics.
Okay, so just above the nameplate, 48% of Nigerians now live below poverty line, says Humanitarian Affairs Minister. I thought it was higher than that.
Yes.
Yeah, perhaps
I thought it was about 52 or thereabout.
Oh, so are we seeing a reduction in that number?
Well, we don't. Yes, possibly we can get more on that on page now. But I've not forgiven that woman. I don't think I'll be able to forgive her for not knowing how 200 billion naira got into our ministry budget. I've not forgiven her.
Well, you heard the defense. So, the Minister of Finance also came in at that time.
Yes.
We never heard the last of it.
Yeah, so now I've not forgiven both of them.
Oh, okay. Yes. All right. Court discharges acquits Omokore firm of $1.6 billion fraud allegations. But the writer says formal procedure followed by the defendants in lifting sale of crude oil. There's something of a pattern that I've seen in the last few weeks or months. Most of the corruption issues and cases that this administration started with celebrated at the beginning of this administration.
And now being discharged.
And then I also saw some of those who had run away also having the courage now to come back to say, I want, for instance, Desiani was also reported a couple of days back as to asking to get forfeited assets back. Omokore here, I've seen another story again where one of such cases was also dispensed.
Yes, I think it began with the presidential pardon of Jolin Nyame and Nyako. A lot of persons felt, well, if Buhari could do that, although that's his prerogative, it's his constitutional power, he can do that. But it also speaks to the fact that you can get away with almost anything.
No, for me, I think it's about the lack of sincerity in the war against corruption. So that means that was all hoodwinking.
Yes. If you want to pardon people who have shown, they are prisoners. There are people who have spent many years in prison and who have not been reformed. But then, like you said, it's the lack of sincerity and the fact that some of these things are also political, to show goodwill.
All right. Okay, so that'll be that. This day newspaper, I guess the last paper, quickly because of our time.
Yes, we'll run through the Nation newspaper. We'll run through that. Banner headline says, Naira scarcity sparks protest. Benin CBN office bank branches short protesters block Benin Ore Road. Buhari meets Tambuwal by Gudu Emefiele. See pictures of bonfires on the roads there. And at the bottom street, Waba out, Ajero in. Death toll in Turkey, Syria earthquake crosses 5,300. And below the nameplate, you have the presidential poll riders. Atiku promises to ensure smooth exploration of Bauchi oil. Wike Oke Stadium for Atiku rally. CSOs target 3.5 million vote for Tinubu. IG orders postings of DIGs, AIGs, CPs as ahead of the election. Ganduje links Naira shortage, court injunction to anti-June 12 element. Limited cash withdrawal will scuttle election, says INEC. A federal government where president can't end impasse. And Tinubu calls for calm over cash crunch, petrol scarcity. El-Rufai Abiodun, let's embrace peace. And above the nameplate, court frees Omokore 2 firms in $1.6 billion oil fraud case on page 29. NNPCL CEO, petrol scarcity will ease next week. That's some bold promise from Mele Kyari.
So for your mental health, I'll advise that you go with a promise. At least it gives you hope. Hope is good for your mental health. Hope is good for your well-being.
Yes, it is. But then the Bible says that the hope makes the heart grow weary. It will take man shock on lie, right?
So at this time, in the midst of what is happening, you need hope.
Yes.
So let's believe what the NNPCL CEO is saying, that is we ease. But I know you have trust issues, especially coming from what happened in the past about the 34-day
sufficiency.
Yes,
my heart is still broken.
It's still broken. Don't worry, you'll be mended. But let's go, because for you to survive times like this, you need to have hope. And that's what really will help. But that's the papers this morning. We thank you so much for staying with us. It's been an extended version of the papers. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll return with our guest, to join us here and talk to us about. We talked about what happened back then
in November,
the issue of the employed workers, but then that's what we're coming back to talk to and give you more about that, what's happening. So myself and Emmanuel will return. The ladies will be stepping aside. Deborah, and talk with. Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Temitope Ajijola.
Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Deborah Ayosoladoye.